Hello everyone, this is Antique Vehicle Videos here, and I'm doing my first ever taking apart of a console video. I may be doing more of these, I'm not sure yet. If you notice, well, you've never actually heard my voice before on this channel, but I'm a bit sick today, so I'll be doing a lot of sniffles. I'll be taking apart in this video a PS1. Now, before I get into details, let me tell you why I'm doing a PS1 first. I don't really like this console, no offense to anyone who does like this, or no offense to Sony or PlayStation. I've just always been a Nintendo fan my entire childhood, so that's why I still play the Wii, the Nintendo 64, and the SNES a lot more than I play my Xbox. So, I mean, I was given this for free from my friend named Teeohh. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. You should check out his channel. He does some gameplays, and he does a lot of videos of him going like out to like thrift stores to go game hunting for like video games and things like that. It's pretty cool. You should check him out. So for this project, I have cotton swabs, or Q-tips. Most people call them Q-tips. That's probably what I'll be calling them. Basically just to like clean out any dust inside of this, because blowing on it you may not notice, but blowing on it could cause spit to fly into it, which you don't want. So just use cotton swabs to wipe it down. If I find something that really needs cleaned, I might get like paper towels off camera or something. But so we're going to be first off unscrewing it and taking it apart by halves. So you're going to go to the bottom side, and there's also this is going to be kind of a long video, but I have 3 screwdrivers. I have one that's really tiny. These are all Phillips, by the way. One that's really tiny for smaller screws. It also has a magnetic tip to be able to pull a screw out easier. One that's bigger. It's another Phillips. This is also, the only reason I have this is because it has a magnetic tip, just in case I need to like get something out. And I have this screwdriver, which is the one I'll be using the most. It's a basic Phillips head screwdriver, but it has like a finer point to it, so that the magnetic one, this one doesn't have a very fine tip to it. So say there's a screw that's been like shredded over time, this one will probably be able to get it out better. So that's why I have this guy. So the first thing you're going to want to do is unscrew it by halves, and you're going to want to take out the screws by just with a regular screwdriver. Basically, they're all Phillips, and there's 6. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws you're going to want to take out. So let me take these out real quick. I have no clue how this is going to work out. I've never taken apart a PlayStation before. Just put the screws off to the side. I may put the screws somewhere else just because I'm doing this on a black surface and the screws are black. But I've never actually done any of the Sony PlayStation consoles or controllers or anything like that. But crap, I can't get this one out. Try magnetic. I can't get this screw out. It just doesn't want to come out. So I'll just go to the next screw. And while I'm unscrewing these, I'll talk. I've never done any of the PlayStation things. Never done any like PS controllers or consoles. Alright, all these screws seem to be the same size, so that's good. The only things I've done N64 controllers, an SNES controller, and an NES. I don't actually have an NES anymore. I just had one, and I needed to clean my 72-pin connector back when I had one. I couldn't get that screw in for a second. I needed to clean the 72-pin connector, so I had to take the entire console apart, basically. Whoops. It seems like the 2 middle screws don't seem to want to come out. I don't know if I'm doing... Okay, I got one out with a magnetic tip. That's why you really want one of these, ones with a magnetic tip, because it's extremely helpful to get the screws out that are like down. It's also helpful to get screws back in if it's like little screws in a part that it's hard to reach. It's really helpful to get those in. Okay, this one screw in the, I'm guessing this is the front middle screw is not coming out. I got it all the way unscrewed, but I can't like grip it properly okay, got it. Okay, so now we have all the screws out, and we're going to take it apart in halves. Not even sure where this comes apart at. Okay, actually you're gonna want to flip it over. I always forget this. Some consoles you have to flip over before you take the halves off. So we're gonna take the top half off. And here you go. So this looks actually kind of not that hard to do. I'm not going to be cleaning the inside too much. This is actually pretty much spotless on the inside, which I'm really impressed with. If you can see, you probably can't see. And it appears that whatever... The other reason I wanted to take apart this console was because there was some major issues with something rattling inside. And rattling inside of a console means that there could be something in there that's not supposed to be. There could be something broken. There could be a screw that's loose. So that's why I wanted to take this console apart. But it seems like this was doing the rattling. It's just a... Actually, it's just the reset button isn't in a good spot. I can actually take the reset button out by pinching these two and pushing this out. So I'll take the buttons out. I need to poke this one out with a screwdriver. Whoops, that fell in. I'm doing this on a pool table, and I just got the power button out, and it fell into one of the pockets of the pool table. It like rolled away. Okay, so here's the power button. I'm gonna clean these all off, all these buttons, just to make it look nicer, I guess. Okay, this one, as you can see, there's like metals covering it. I'm gonna unscrew those. There's two screws that are brass right there and there. Well, they're not actually brass, but they look brass. So I'm gonna get those out, and they look pretty easy to get out with the magnetic one. So I take that back. I'm gonna have to use this screwdriver. And just gonna unscrew this metal plate that goes over this button. This is the eject button, or I guess it's called the open button on the PS1. Not sure if they changed that throughout the PS series. Like I said, I don't play PS1s that much, or any PS for that matter. So in reality, I have no clue what I'm talking about half the time. I got hair on my tongue. Okay, so now that I've unscrewed this, you can see this comes like right off with these actually. And now that I've taken this off, I didn't even notice this spring came out. This spring was over the power button. I'll just put that back in place whenever yeah, it just kind of sits in place. I'll just put that back in place. So now that I've taken the eject mechanism off, it's permanently stuck open. Because the eject thing was also what holds it shut. But the reason I took that off was so I could get the eject button off. Again, that rolled across the thing too. That's about all I'm going to be doing. There's other stuff that I could take off. You can see there's screws right here that will allow me to take this lid off. But I'm not going to do that because there's nothing in here that's going to get like messed up if I wash it. There's no electronics in here because I really want to wash the top of this, like right around this, because it's starting to get yellow. I mean, washing it's not going to really get rid of the yellow, but I just wanted to wash that. So let me grab the eject button that rolled across the room. And so I'm going to go get something to help me here in a second, so we'll have a little jump cut here. Okay, sorry about that. I'm also really tired, so if I sound like really quiet, that's why. I grabbed this brush just to kind of demonstrate what I use to clean off things. I use this brush because it really helps get off like heavier dirt that can't just get off with running water. These brushes can be bought like at they can usually be bought in bulk too at like any superstore, like a Walmart or something like that. You can just buy these. They're pretty easy to come across. But basically, I just run water on this because we've used this so much that, not just for consoles, we've used this for everything in the house. We've used it so much that there's actually probably cleaning products still in it. So I just run water over this, but if you have a newer one, you probably want to spray like any cleaner in it. Just make sure that there's no electrical work in whatever you're cleaning, and just rub it down basically like this. You're gonna have to put some real elbow grease into it, but I just got this to kind of demonstrate what I was gonna do. Okay, so now we have the basic brain of PS1, and I just saw something roll down. I just saw something fall from here and roll down into this little hole right here, and I think that's what's been causing the rattling noise as well as the reset button. So I'm trying to look around here and just see where I have to unscrew to get the bulk of this thing out. Oh. I didn't even know that happened. Okay, that came out completely by accident. I just took the like CD reading mechanism off of things that hold it in place, you don't want to take that off. I'm actually going to get a Q-tip and clean off around here real quick. Clean off like around here. This is the laser right here that reads the disc, so I'm going to clean that off with a Q-tip. But be careful because it looks like it's not like perfectly in spot. It rolls around a bit, and just clean off where the disc goes just to keep dust from getting onto the disc. You can also wet your Q-tip, would probably help also. I'm not doing that because there's not a sink nearby. Yeah, there wasn't really a lot of dust on that, but I just thought I would. So I'm going to kind of do this as I go along and just hope for the best. I'm going to be using this screwdriver, the non-magnetic one that's bigger. And there's screw holes, there's screws that you gotta take out. There's one there, there's actually one in this square hole right here that you can't really see. There's one here. There's one down here under these wires right here that's going to be a pain to get out. And then there's one on each side of the controller ports. So I'm going to take all those screws out right now. I have really unstable hands, so I'm trying to like line up the screwdriver, and you'll hear a lot of rattling when I try to do that. I just can't line up screws really. Okay, these ones they seem to be a bit smaller than the ones that were holding the eject mechanism in place, so you're going to want to separate those. Separate all your screws into piles, I would say, just so you know where they go. Just to make it easier on yourself, really. Okay, we're going to get the one behind the wires here, and you want to make sure that you don't disconnect the wires, because if you do, that'd probably be really bad. Because I'm not sure how easy, okay, I dropped that, so let's use the magnetic one to get it. See, this is why you really need a magnetic screwdriver, just to help get screws that fall into places that you can't reach with your fingers. Or just a magnet in general would probably work really well. Just any magnetic screwdriver is great. Actually, I'm going to use the one in the square hole right here. I'm going to use the magnetic screwdriver to get out, because it looks like it's going to be a pain to get out with a regular screwdriver. Oh crap, I dropped it down in the hole again. Okay, got it. The problem with the magnetic screwdriver is that it actually passes the magnetic charge through the screw it's holding. So, like, if I was holding a screw on the magnetic screwdriver, the screw would become magnetic and stick to the metal around it. That's why it's kind of hard to use those suckers. Okay, so I think I got every screw out that's holding this bulky piece in place. It's also connected to this mechanism over here. This is the motherboard right here. This right here is the brain of the PS1. So we're going to actually take these out because they are connected by this wire, so we're going to take them out together. It appears that there's only a few screws holding this in place. Let's just lift it up to test. Yeah, it kind of does clip in place under little plastic pieces, but there's two screws down here, one on either side of the port right here. Ew, there's a big clump of dust right there. Let's get that out real quick. Okay. So you're going to want to take those two screws out. They're brass also. I'm going to use the regular screwdriver because they don't look like they're in a real hard spot to get out here. Okay, I'll separate those as well. It's just a real... Doing something like this is also... Whoops. If you're not using a video tutorial, then doing something like this is a big risk, actually, because if you forget where something goes, you can't just leave a console with a piece missing. That's, like, not okay. So we're going to take out the motherboard first. Be very careful with this, because this is what you need to keep your PS1 alive, basically. And this isn't coming out exactly easy peasy here. I think I have to get the controller ports out with it. No, the controller ports actually come out separately. But this is all connected by wires and stuff, so this is why newer consoles are harder. If this was like an N64 or an NES or something, it's so much easier to take apart than this. Because there's not a lot of wires in it. There's just a lot of, like, weird things. Okay, I'm trying to lift this out. It's not exactly coming out easy. There's no screws left holding it in place. I'm trying to think here. Yeah, I don't see any screws holding it in place. But there's also... Okay, here. I'm going to see if this will help. Okay, yeah. So I figured out how to do this. So, here's the controller ports. If you lift them up and look under, there's like a piece of RF shielding, which is just a piece of metal. Under the big piece right here, it's this, it goes all the way down. You're going to want to try and lift up by that on that side. It's behind the controller ports, and I think that's the best way to go about doing this. This does seem like the whole thing fits very snugly together. So if you're having a little bit of manhandling to do, that's probably normal. Okay, now that I'm looking under here, there's more screws holding these two ports in place. And this is actually where the brain is, under here, right here. And it doesn't look like that's going to be that easy to take apart. Oh, there's a bunch of screws, actually. There's one on both sides of this, and then there's one on the left of this, and one on the right of this. My left, it's basically. I'm going to try to take those screws off. So I'm going to try to take this all out in one piece, because it'll be so much easier to put back together. So you may be wondering why I'm, like, doing all this to take it out in one piece. This is why. Hopefully this goes back together, because I'll feel really bad for my friend who gave it to me. It doesn't go back together. Okay, so now I can feel that the motherboard, aka the brain of the console, is getting loosey-goosey. I can't get that screw out with my hand or a magnetic screwdriver, so that's just a good sign. The older your console is, the more likely you're going to have screws that don't want to come out. So that's not exactly fun. Like my SNES has a bunch of broken screws in it. Okay, so now we're going to place this back down, and we're going to try and lift up by the ports. Okay, well now I can get that screw out. Of course I can. Okay, I got the screw out that was giving me a tissy last time. Now we're just going to try and take this whole thing out. Alright, it's still hooked over here. I'm not sure if there's like a screw holding it in place that I'm missing. I think it's just, I have to lift it up straight. Yep, here we go. Okay, so this all right here is all what makes a PS1 do what a PS1 does. All right here. And if you want to go into extreme cleaning detail, if you lift it up, you will notice that this right here where my middle finger that's wiggling is, it's just a piece of metal, basically, and that will, you'll be able to slide that off pretty easily and just clean that on its own. But mine's not actually that dirty. The main reason I'm doing this is to get out, like, you can't really see it, but there's a lot of, like, chunks of stuff in here. I don't know how that got in there. And that's the main reason I'm doing this all, is to just clean the inside of this and the inside of the top, and to clean the outsides mainly. So, I'll be right back after I clean it just with water and with this scrub brush. I'm also cleaning the, reset power and eject buttons. So I'll be back after I clean everything up. Okay, so now that I've washed everything, I have everything sitting on a towel, just waiting to dry. The reason you want to let it air dry and not hand dry it, you could hand dry it just to speed up the process. Like right now, this is all covered in water, and I could just turn it over and push it against the towel, and that would get off a lot of the excess moisture. But the reason you want to let everything air dry is that you know for a fact that it's dry. If you hand dry it, there's little spots that using a paper towel would miss. And if water drips out of that onto anything in here, you're screwed. So I personally would let everything air dry just to be sure 100% that everything is dry, because that one drop of water could be the difference between having an amazing PS1 and a pile of crap. Other things that you could, if you really wanted to, you could wash each individual screw. I wouldn't do that because that's just really time consuming and you don't see them. 90% of the screws I have over here are inside the console. And also you could wash like this spring, it's just a piece of metal, it'll dry, it's fine. I'm trying to see, this eject mechanism doesn't actually have any electronics in it. It has a piece of foam, a metal spring, a piece of plastic, and a piece of like little sheet metal. So you could have washed the eject mechanism if you really wanted to. I didn't because again it's inside, you won't really see it. The things I did wash were the two halves of the console and the 3 buttons, the power, open, and reset button. So once everything air dries, I will be back with a tutorial on how to put it back together. So stick around for that part. Another tip I want to give you guys is, letting it air dry is basically the key here. If it doesn't air dry, you don't know if it's clean on the inside, and it's really not a good idea to put it back together. But another thing I want to tell you is that, especially consoles, there's a lot of tiny little nooks and crannies inside of them that water droplets can form inside of, and it won't air dry. They'll just stay there. Like, for example, things like inside these little screw holes right here, or in like gaps in this gear right here, those things aren't going to air dry by themselves. So you got to get things A really helpful thing to use, again, is a Q-tip, because you can push it in and get excess moisture out that wouldn't come out on its own. And believe me, this works, and it's a great way to do it. It's a great way to get rid of the moisture that could get stuck in there. And just do that all around, tiny little areas where you see water droplets forming. Water droplets, if they do air dry, it'll take a very long time. I've waited about an hour, and you can see most of it's air dried on its own, but the inside of the console is still very wet. You can see here, I'm not sure if you can actually see that or not, but the inside is still pretty much soaked almost. There's like water everywhere. This part's mainly dry because I kept turning it over because I know there's water on both sides that's in there. I also use a Q-tip inside like these button areas right here where there would normally be buttons. But the top part's dry, so I'm just going to set that aside. So are all three buttons here because they didn't really, wait, are they dry? Because they also have little spots inside them. Yeah, they're pretty much dry. I don't need to use a Q-tip on those. The bottom part, I'm just going to let air dry a little bit longer because, I mean, basically, that's it. And another thing, if you want to do this to a console on your own, and not follow a tutorial, honestly, it's not that hard, but you got to find the right tools. Like, magnetic screwdrivers are really helpful, and certain brands. Another reason I decided to do, I'm just going to clean it dry this with Q-tips while I talk. Another reason I chose to do the PS1 is because it doesn't use special like screws. It just uses Phillips screws, which is really helpful because Nintendo, when they started this with the SNES, anything newer than an SNES has things called a gain screw or game. I'm not sure if it's G-A-N-E or G-A-M-E. If you can see this, the Q-tip is very dirty, and that just drying it off with a Q-tip helped get a lot of dirt out too. But Nintendo uses something called either a gain or a game screw, and it's not that hard to get a screwdriver for them, but you have to get them online, and I hate buying things online, even if it's off of like a very popular website. I just don't like it. But they're really cheap, actually. It's only like $4 for a screwdriver and the bit. And the bit has multiple sizes to it because Nintendo uses multiple size gain screws inside of their consoles. Microsoft, on the Xbox and the Xbox 360, I'm not sure about the Xbox One. I've never actually seen one in person, really. Well, I've seen one, I just haven't actually like looked up close at the screws on it. But the Xbox and the Xbox 360 use things called Torx screws, which are basically like a Phillips, but a Phillips makes a cross, or an X. A Torx screw is almost like making a X with 6 points instead of 4. And those aren't as hard to come by. I actually have them here, but because my dad uses them very rarely. But they're like, I mean, just saying we have them. But the thing is that my dad doesn't have small enough Torx screws. My dad only has like ones for bigger things because apparently he uses them. I don't know what for, honestly. But so I'm just going to let this air dry the rest of the way. And that's just another reason I'm using this. So if you want to do this at your house, it's honestly not that hard. It's just like doing a puzzle. You just take the screws out. You got to remember where they go or else you're screwed. No pun intended. And you just put it back together. It's really not that hard. People think it's hard and people will be like, oh my god, you're amazing. You managed to take apart this console and do all this. It's not that hard. Just take it apart, remove any electronics, set those aside. You can get some like, what's that called? Compressed air, like in a can that you spray, and just spray the electronics down with that just to get any excess dust out of there, and wash out the plastic parts just to make it look cleaner. So I'll be back whenever this is air dried to put it back together. Okay, everyone. Everything has officially dried, so now I'm going to be putting it back together. If you're wondering why I've relocated, I'm now in my room. I used to be in my basement on a pool table, but now my dad's working on a car down there, so there's a lot of noise going on down there, and also it smells really bad. So first we're going to want to basically put the entire electronic piece back into the bottom. This is the bottom half. It's completely dry. Took a long time to dry, believe it or not. I guess there's just a lot of like little tiny spots for water to get caught in here. So we're just going to put it back together, essentially. Put that into there. Remember that this piece has like a little clip on the right side where this long wall is right here, holding it in place. you're going to want to make sure you line up that clip. Line up the there's two little plastic nubs that stick out. I don't think a nub is the technical term for that. Alright, and then line up the controller part. And there's two screws over here holding this in place. I'm going to get those two. Since I'm working on like really fuzzy carpet right now, I have all my screws put somewhere separate so they didn't get lost in the carpet. So screw you back into place. Again, see, I almost lost this screw just because I put it to the side to wait for finishing the other one. Can't line this up. This is another reason you want to use a magnetic tip. Okay, so now that this piece is screwed into place, we're going to screw in the controller ports, and if you remember, it was just one screw on each side over here. So we're going to get the other group of two screws, put them into place. This is actually a lot easier to put back in than it was to take apart. Alright, now that that's screwed into place, if you remember, there were 4 screws under here next to all the ports, so we're going to try to put those back into place. We're probably going to have to use the magnetic screwdriver here. Let's pick up one screw here. One went over here. I remember there was one on each side of this port, one on this side of this one, and one on the far side of this one. Start with you, I guess. I just picked a random hole. Don't think there's really any order you have to screw them in. Honestly, I already have the screws out. I was about to turn around just to realize that I already have the screws here. Alright. Keep going here. This is probably the most boring part of the video. I'm just doing it all, I'm just putting it back together all on video for someone who like either doesn't remember how it went together or doesn't remember where like certain screws went. I actually almost forgot about these screws until I was screwing in the controller ports. Yeah, I can't talk much doing this because I first of all have to concentrate and remember where everything goes. And second of all, there's really nothing to talk about. I already talked about the specific screws. I was going to talk about the specific screws that other consoles use while doing this, but I already talked about that while I was talking about how to dry it quicker with Q-tips. So, how do you know? I have nothing to talk about at this point. Now, this last screw over here doesn't seem to want to go in. Alright, now I got him going. Also, I don't even know what this port is for, honestly. All you use is this port and one of these two. That's all you really use. Put in the last one here, and then we'll start to screw the whole chunk back together. I can't remember if it went on this side. I think it just went on either side. On these two, this port and this port over here, there's a screw hole on either side, but each one only had one. So I don't think it matters which hole you screw them in at. Okay, so now we're just going to screw in the whole chunk right here. Now you should have 6 screws. I have 6. I don't think I lost one. And one right here, one under this wire, if you remember, one over here, one over here, and then there's also, last time I did put, okay, so how I said that this and this don't matter, it really doesn't, but remember how last time there wasn't a screw here? Now there is because I screwed this in on a different spot, so now you're going to want to have to put one over here instead. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't seem to figure out where the 6th screw goes, but we'll just see if we find a hole along the way that doesn't have a screw. And if not, obviously, This is all still holding together perfectly fine, so I don't necessarily think a screw is needed, honestly. Okay, this isn't seeming to want to go in unless I'm not screwing it in the right way. Okay, we'll try somewhere else first. This one I know will screw in. Yeah, you're screwing in just fine. Okay, the screw right here didn't seem to want to go in. I'm not sure if there was a screw there, or if I'm just going insane. That's me going insane is always an option with things like this. I'm just gonna... I don't know where these extra screws are coming from. But a lot of consoles, even different brands, like I know a lot of Nintendo brands use these brass-looking screws. So I would really suggest using... Whoops, that didn't screw in either. Probably shouldn't have turned that upside down because now this disconnect fell out again. A lot of consoles, even different brands, use the same screws. Because I know a lot of Nintendo things use these screws. Oh, under the wires where I was missing one. Oh, where did I just drop that at? Okay, it's right here. Again, magnetic screwdrivers really help. Even, like, I know, when I was... Jeez, it's a hard screw to get in. The one under the wire is really a doozy. I know, like, my NES, when I was taking it apart, I don't have it anymore, but when I was taking it apart, it used these same screws. And that's a completely different brand of a completely different time period. So, I mean, obviously, you should, if you find out that you have extra screws for some reason, which I don't know why I do, but I do, if you have extra screws, I would keep them, because you could use them on something that doesn't have a screw. Like, I have 3 extra screws, and I'll be honest, I really don't know why I have 3 extra screws. I don't see anywhere else that needs a screw that doesn't have one. That's a, okay, this one doesn't need a screw. The only reason it would need a screw is for, the only reason it has a screw hole is because that's where this screws on to here. Same with this one, this hole, the one in between the memory card spots, and this one, and all 4 corners, basically. So I can't seem to find out where I'm missing screws at. That's not a screw hole. I guess I'm not missing screws, unless... No, they can't go there. Okay, I have extra screws. I don't know where they go, but I have 3 extra screws. I'm not complaining because now I have something to use these on. Or now, yeah, now I have something I could use these on. Okay, so now we're going to take this aside, and we are going to assemble the top half. But I'll be right back, actually. Okay, now we're going to assemble the top half. And if you're wondering why I keep, like, jumping in the video, it's because I can't record longer than 15-minute segments, or else I won't be able to post them. So we're going to turn it around, actually, so that the opening is this way, because we're going to screw the little eject mechanism back into place on here. So now the real question is, which way did this go in? Okay, it definitely went in... Wait. I may have to go back and review the video. Okay, it went in like this. Oh, I heard a spring. Okay, there we go. It fits into place perfectly. Okay, this is where 2 of the extra screws I have come into play. Now I'm caught up on why I have extra screws. Because 2 of them go into here. I don't know where the last screw went still. But so, if you're wondering, the eject thing looks like this when you put it back into place. Sorry, I have to hold it because... I'll screw it in and then show you. Because I have to hold it or else it'll, like, fly out. Because it's spring-loaded. Let me just screw this in and then I'll show you because I know you guys need to know how this goes in too. If you're using this as a tutorial, thanks for watching, I guess. Thanks for using my video. Because I'm sure someone else on YouTube has done this. Okay, so now you'll notice it actually does stay shut. And once we put in the button, it'll probably go back in. And this is what it should look like when it's screwed back in. The screws go right here and right here. And the easiest way to remember this is that the little foam black pad right here is the closest it can be to the actual disc area. Okay, so now we're going to flip you over, and you're the eject button. Okay, so here's how it goes. The reset button's obviously the smallest one. You don't really need to know that one. These just kind of push back into place. which is really great. Actually, you just kind of push them back in. The eject button lines up with the eject mechanism, and if you're wondering, if you're looking at it the way I am, with the controller ports facing you, the power button's right above the little light, and the eject button is closer to the number 2 spot. So that's how you remember that. So your power button, you go right there, and you're the open. I keep calling it the eject button, but it's actually the open button, technically. And you saw I just pressed it on accident, and it totally works. So now the opening mechanism works again. And now we're just going to take you, put it on top like so, very gently, because you don't want to knock anything loose inside of it. It should fit perfectly back into place. If it doesn't, you probably put something together wrong. Flip it back over and screw. Oh, wait, no, hold on. I totally forgot about this. Sorry, people. I forgot about... There's a spring somewhere in here. I think it's... There's a spring under the power button that needs to be put in. I totally forgot about that. It kind of stays in place on its own. Kind of. Not really. If you're nope, just kidding. I was going to say if you're gentle. The power button lines up. An easy way to put the spring back on is the power button lines up right with this black squarish cube right here with the little white nub sticking off. So you can set the spring on top of that gently and try to center it as best as you can. And then put the top back on. I forgot about that spring. Yeah, so now the power button springs back up on its own. And then you can turn it back over. And finally, after all your hard effort, you can put all 6 black screws back in and call it a day. So I'm just going to screw these back together just to show you. One screws in. If you recall, I had an issue with one of the middle screws. I think it was the front middle or well, it was one of the middle screws, I know that. I'm not sure if it was the front middle or back middle, so I'm not sure if it'll screw back in on its own. So I'm going to do the 4 corners first. And honestly, doing the corners is probably the best way to go, so you can tighten those, so then the middle screws will be easier to line up on their own. Alright, so this is the last corner screw. And screw, that was a long one. Okay, now we'll do the 2 middle screws. I don't remember which one gave. Must have been the front middle one, because this one seems like it's going to screw in okay. Yeah, it had to be the front middle one, because this one's screwing in perfectly fine. And lastly, we'll do the front middle screw. Maybe it'll... Yeah, it's screwing in fine. I don't know what. I do remember there was one of the middle screws that didn't go in, but this seems to go in fine. Okay. So... now we have a fully put back together PS1. The reset button works, the open button works, and it locks back in place. The power button springs back up on its own after you turn it off. I mean, everything seems to work fine. I didn't clean the ports at all, which I guess I could have with like a Q-tip or blowing into it. But that's not a big issue here, because this did work prior to cleaning it, but I just wanted to clean the outside because it was really dirty, and you don't want to clean anything without taking it apart like that. So, yeah, that's how to take apart, clean, and refurbish your PS1. So, thank you for watching, everyone, and please leave a like or subscribe for more videos like this one.